Candlestick Park, 13 rows behind home plate. My wife and my 2 young boys.
Hey, I'll tell you what, we're having an earthquake.
It sounded like everyone was clomping their feet. And I thought, oh, why is everyone getting excited? And it's getting louder and louder, and I realized, no, this is an earthquake. And it went up, 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 the sound, and then it stopped. Just like that.
While the earthquake's epicenter was at just 9 miles northeast of Santa Cruz, the damage to the Bay Area was widespread. Fires engulfed the Marina District in San Francisco.
Shut off the gas! Shut off electricity!
We're over the Bay Bridge now, once again. A section of the upper deck has collapsed.
And the horrifying collapse of a portion of Highway 880 in Oakland trapped cars heading home in a lighter than normal rush hour, thanks to the World Series.
Talked to my wife, gathered up our kids, walked out and got into our car to slowly make our way back to Santa Cruz.
Boardwalk staff who weren't at work recalled their experiences when the quake hit. Claudia Gutierrez was at the corner of Branciforte and Socal.
We were stopped in that intersection when the car started shaking, and we thought there was something wrong with the car. But then the window planes on the battery burst.
Actually, I just left work, driving over the Riverside Bridge, and I was just about to get to the bridge, and things were like gloomy and shaky. I could just feel the bridge was like going wavy.
The tremors were even more profound for those inside. Chris Reyes was at home.
I was sitting at my desk. I was 15 years old. I just had my birthday, and I got this baseball card game called Pursue the Pennant that comes with sheets and sheets, hundreds and hundreds of player cards. And I had spent weeks cutting them apart, putting them in the right stacks on my desk. And when the earthquake hit, I knocked them all over so that I could get under my desk. I stayed under my desk for a while, then tried to run outside, and my dad grabbed me and held me under a door frame, and we just rode it out from there on.
Those still at work at the boardwalk described their experience being at the then 81-year-old amusement park.
Well, I was in my office, and I remember the building started to move like maybe a train was going to go by.
And then it just changed gears.
We were in a meeting.
And then all of a sudden, a big old jolt.
It hit hard, and bookshelves in the office were falling over.
Flakes coming out of the ceiling.
Computers came off desks, and it was not the same old earthquake that I've ever felt before.
Looked out the window, and you could see everything shaking, and everybody at the meeting, they were going under the table. I thought to myself, as it's going down, I'm going to watch it. So I watched the sky glider come off at Shiv, and it took quite a shake to get that cable loose.
And it was like, whoa, and then of course the phone went dead. And I was kind of dazed there for a few seconds, like, oh, geez, you know.
Across the street from the boardwalk, in what is now the main parking lot, sat the Casa del Rey. When it opened in 1911, it was a grand hotel by any measure. By 1989, it had been converted into a housing facility for seniors.
I was in my office in the Casa del Rey. So the bottom floor, was shaking, and then it was a dust downpour, and realized we needed to get out.
I was probably 100 feet from here at the Casa del Rey. I had just gotten off work. I was walking into the parking lot to go to my car, and all of a sudden the ground started shaking. I could hear the sound of the Casa del Rey moving on its foundations, and I could see ripples in this parking lot. And then it stopped after 15 seconds, and I went, oh, shoot, I'm in charge.
Damage to the Casa del Rey was significant, but downtown Santa Cruz was hit even harder.
On the other side of Beach Hill was this cloud of dust, and some of it had this orange. It was bathed in this orange glow.
I had several really good friends that owned businesses downtown that were destroyed by the earthquake. The Coonerty family at Bookshop Santa Cruz, and the Mills family, the Zoccoli's family that owned Zoccoli's.
Downtown was the core. And honestly, even though the boardwalk has significant impact, the rides closed and the Casa del Rey hotel closed, there's no life lost here. In downtown there was.
Where's the fire?
It was not surprising that emergency responders had their hands full dealing with the devastation downtown.
Within the first hour or so, there was a cop that came by in a car. And I'll never forget, I mean, he looked to see what was going on in the parking lot. And he said, well, it looks like you guys got it pretty well under control, but you're on your own. And then he hightailed it out.
But Carl Arnett, the earthquake happened and he went home and he came back with everything we needed.
He brought his truck down. He had radios, cooking equipment, generators, and even I think a porta potty. He actually finagled a couple of phone lines over to the parking lot. So actually, we actually had phones, which is kind of surprising to me as I think about it, because a lot of phones went out.
In the quake's immediate aftermath, residents at the Casa del Rey became the #1 priority.
It just kept on shaking and shaking. We were afraid about having people spend the night in the hotel, so they went to the Casa del Rey garage and just started taking out mattresses and blankets and pillows so people could sleep outside if they wanted to sleep outside. And I remember Diana Ligon came in and she goes, Tisha, I think probably should evacuate. I'm like, okay. So we started evacuating and we got everybody out.
Because it was dinner time and they were able to get the food out. So we were able to feed them. Having a chef on hand already preparing food was very handy, and then having everybody just join in and make it okay.
The first night, people needed their medication. So one of our staff members volunteered to go in the building and go to room to find out what medication people needed and go pick it up and take it.
And so we had folks that stayed here all night, security. We got uniform jackets out of wardrobe so they had something warmer to wear.
We ended up moving the residents into the carousel and then became the inn manager.
So for 2 months, people were housed at the Carousel Beach Inn. 2 months.
The damage to the Casa del Rey was extensive.
We saw cracks, and then as we went through that building, there were separations, floor to walls. I mean, there were some pretty significant indications of damage.
Well, it was really total. Luckily, it didn't fall down. We had quite a few people in there. And we were lucky we got them all out.
Across the street on the main walk, some areas fared better than others.
Just went all around the park, checking the damage, and some of it we didn't find until a few days later.
The beach bandstand fell down. Boom. Gone.
While the iconic Loof Carousel and Giant Dipper were no worse for wear, the log ride was not as fortunate.
We had several of the flume towers that were in that area went out askew, actually pulled the trough apart above the flume ride. The flume holding tank split, and we lost whatever 60,000 gallons, and all that water came running down into the river basement.
At the other end of the walk, the Casino Arcade, the Coconut Grove, and what is now Neptune's Kingdom had their own issues.
The flagpole on the casino dome got bent, and it just sent out the wrong message. And so we got that down pretty quickly because it just represented the worst of what had happened.
Well, everything was a mess, even up in that Coconut Grove. We had just set up for a big event, and the bar was all set up, and we went back in there, and you couldn't even see the floor. All the bottles and the glasses, everything was on the floor.
Street side entrance to this building, which was the old golf course at the time, had separated from the main building, and so we just cordoned off the area around that. It was the incentive that Charles needed to say, okay, we're not going to repair and fix this building. We're going to go ahead and do what we've been planning to do. That was the springboard to get Neptune's drawings finalized.
Construction of the new Neptune's Kingdom would take months. In the meantime, there was a lot of other work to be done.
I was working at Marini's. I was a candy boy. which is a lot more masculine of a job than it sounds. There were these huge jars of molasses that sat on these shelves for the molasses taffy, and they had all fallen and cracked. And so I had to scrape molasses off the ground using a scraper. And the thing I learned is that when you try to scrape molasses, it just moves to another spot on the ground. So I think I just moved it around for a couple hours.
I had to come and clean Dipper Diner. I think I was a kitchen lead at that time. And I came down and there was oil all over the place because I guess all the oil from out of the fryers was splashed around. So we had to clean off everything off the floor, the walls, just get ready for opening.
Some good news after the earthquake. The Santa Cruz Boardwalk reopened today to help raise money for quake victims. Much to the delight of the visitors, a giant dipper rolled today. This weekend you can visit the boardwalk, pay a flat fee, and ride the dipper or anything else all day long. It costs only $5 per person, and all the money is going to be handed over to the Santa Cruz County Red Cross and the Salvation Army.
We raised $22,000.
It was just good to let people take a break from being in the middle of a disaster.
Work would continue on the boardwalk over the next year, but when the next season opens, it would not be the condition of the park that changed the guest experience. It was how to get to the boardwalk in the first place.
They closed that bridge and then right away got FEMA to demolish it. But in the meanwhile, all the traffic that normally would come over that bridge coming into the beach area was diverted.
You actually had to go through downtown, come down Pacific. So how would we explain that to people? This is before cellular phones and just putting it on your app, how do you get to the boardwalk? We put maps on napkins, hundreds of thousands of those napkins. We called them mapkins.
In addition to the mapkins, signage of some kind was needed to guide visitors through town.
So there were these banners that were just crazy. A banner would say, "See next banner." One of the banners said, "In a past life, I was a scarf."
As challenging as it was, there was also much to be thankful for.
But we were entering by far the slowest period of business that we experience annually, that November through into February. And so there was that worked out in a strange way for us very, very well, because it could have been much different.
It was in October, so our business was really on the ebb. It was good timing for us. If it happened in the summer, it would have been a disaster.
I'm so thankful that this didn't happen on a Saturday when the park was open.
Frankly, we were quite fortunate. There was no loss of life here. There was no injury here. Thankfully, we weren't open. I mean, there was a lot to be thankful for. And I don't think that was lost on anybody.
For those that lived through the Loma Prieta earthquake, it remains one of those moments they'll always remember. And like so many natural disasters, it's also one of those events that brought out the best in people.
Actually, after the earthquake, I'm really proud of how everybody came together.
Everybody just jumped in and did what needed to be done.
Just proud that the way that everybody kind of rallied through and the community, stepped forward and, rebuilding process.
I think that's what I remember most of that earthquake, the way that the community came together to help each other out and make sure that everybody was safe and everybody was being taken care of.
We were doing the meals for the retirement folks in the Castle Ray. That's how we started, but it kind of grew into the locals and beach flat community. We feed anybody who came, so we would just continuously keep cooking until we ran out, and then we start all over again.
The food line was out, and people needed whatever it was there for them. I don't know that every company would respond that way, so that was just a really good feeling to have that support.
What I realize now is how resilient the company was and how committed they were to just moving on. And that's how you have to be if you're 112 years old. Get up, dust ourselves off, and keep going.